It's George Christensen here on the TNT Radio George Christensen Show. Thanks very much for joining us for this next hour. And we're joined by conservative activist and author Geoffrey Grimshaw. Geoffrey's actually running in the New South Wales state election that's taking place in Australia at the moment. As I said, he's a conservative activist, he's an author. He's based down there in Sydney. He actually co-wrote the book Trigger Warming, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Global Warming, but Were Afraid to Ask, a book that actually challenges the mainstream narrative on climate change. And I find it's one that actually provides the facts, logic, and common sense that dispels the fear of some climate catastrophe that's going to wipe us all out. As I told you, he's running in the New South Wales state election for a party known as the Liberal Democrats. And I believe that he's running in the seat of North Shore against someone who we'll talk about a bit later and what he's done, Matt Keane, who's turned the New South Wales Liberal Party into a version of the Green Party. But look, it's a pleasure to be joined by Geoffrey Grimshaw. Jeff, are you there, mate?
Yes, I am. Thanks, George. It's great to be here.
Thank you. I know that you have been involved in a lot of different conservative forums and events where you're advocating for things like lower taxes, smaller government, individual liberty and free speech. But one of the key things that I wanted to talk to you about was your book, Trigger Warming, because we're living in a time right now where it seems that climate change is being used for one simple thing, and that is control. How do you see, given that you've written a book on this topic, the whole climate change agenda playing out vis-a-vis control by the so-called globalist elite?
Well, it's interesting that they call these cities smart cities, first of all. Everything seems to have this prefix smart nowadays. You've got smart fridges and smart air conditioners and smart cars, and they're all controlled, as you said, that's the key word, control, and they can be controlled from somewhere that we don't really know or understand, or somebody else is in control of those things. There's that famous example of the air conditioners in Queensland that they were able to, the smart air conditioners, that they were able to switch off. And really it's what they're essentially saying is that we have all of these smart machines run by AI, which means that the people using them must therefore be dumb. And that's the form of control they want over us. And they will use global warming as an excuse for imposing this control further and further and further, all the way down to every last morsel of meat that, if you're lucky to eat meat, that you buy and eat, down to your calories. We can already do this. We already have apps that measure our calories and smart scales that can measure our body fat and so on. I mean, it's some of these things are frightening. At the same time, they're useful, but it depends who is controlling them, who has access to that data, and what is it going to be used for, and is it going to be used to impose more control over us and what we do and what we eat. These things should be a choice for us, not for somebody else. And that's really the core message of the Liberal Democrats, is that personal autonomy is ours. We are the party of freedom and liberty, and we do not want to be controlled by the government or anybody else.
Tell me, what is the difference between the Liberal Democrats now and the Liberal Party, which was supposed to be the mainstream conservative libertarian party?
Well, it's quite simple, really. The Liberals were the party of Robert Menzies, and now we are the party of Robert Menzies. It's as simple as that. I know it's being called the Liberal Democrats is probably quite scary to our American audience, because we have two of the worst words, liberal and Democrats. But we really are a libertarian and conservative party that's probably most similar to the Republicans, and I would also say the old Conservatives, the Thatcherite Reagan era of Conservatives in the UK and the US respectively. And everybody else has shifted leftwards. We've stayed where we are. We've always had the same principles, and we will stick to those principles because we are a party of principles. These parties, Liberals, the Liberals, Labour, Greens, they have no principles anymore. They will sell out to anything and to anybody for the highest bidder in exchange for power, money, fame, whatever it is. I last voted for the Liberals in 2016, around the time of Malcolm Turnbull, when he said something along the lines of, well, the Conservatives in the Liberal Party don't matter. I said, well, fine, if we don't matter, then you won't miss our votes then. And that's when the first very large chunk of us left. And then the following year, Cory Bernardi left the Liberal Party, formed the Australian Conservatives, whom I joined. And then subsequently, when the AC dissolved in 2019, I joined the Liberal Democrats. We're deindustrializing. And if we want to go down this path, then we're going to have to accept a much, much lower standard of living. We all know that, or at least the skeptics know that ruinable energy, or unreliable energy, as I like to call it, just will not work. It's impossible. We've had so many engineers and electrical engineers, civil engineers look at this problem and say, renewable energy is just impossible. Net zero is impossible. There is no point pursuing it. And as you said earlier, even if you believe that in catastrophic man-made global warming, there is nothing that Australia can do. That we will have absolutely no effect on the temperature. And why anybody thinks that if we do something, the rest of the world will follow, I have no idea, because I don't think any country has ever followed Australia's lead on anything ever. So why people think that's going to happen? Well, we're blowing up and destroying our coal plants, whilst all of the India and China are replacing and building coal-fired power plants every month almost. So they want to put us through this deindustrialization and undo everything we've built that has made our lives so comfortable that people simply do not recognize how important cheap, reliable energy is.
Thank you very much for taking up the cudgels for libertarianism and liberty, and putting your name forward as a candidate in the New South Wales election. We wish you all the very best, and let's not be a stranger. I think we should talk in the future at some point. Thanks very much for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you, George. And please check out my website.
Show. Please, what's the website quickly?
Notkeen.com.au, because I'm not keen.
George Christensen Show. Thanks very much, Jeff. George Christensen Show here on TNT Radio. Pleasure having you.